Is this the best version of Edwin Diaz you've seen since you've taken over as Mets manager?
100%. Towards the end of last year and definitely in the playoff when we were deploying him multiple innings, 35 pitches. People have to understand that he came from a pretty big injury, and took him a while to get going. And then finally going through an off season where he was healthy, he didn't have to worry about rehabbing and just basically keep your arm in shape, work on mechanics. And that's what we're seeing. We've seen a guy that comes in, he's aggressive, using both of his pitches, the fastball, the slider, with conviction, attacking, and he makes him elite.
Welcome to Meet at the Apple, presented by PC Richard & Son. I'm Jonathan Barron. Vito Calisi still out on vacation, but we've got a pretty good guest in his place. Of course, I'm talking about Mets manager Carlos Mendoza. Carlos, good to see you. How you been recently?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I was shocked that we're missing the guy here.
We are, but if you turn around, we do have a nice photograph of the three of us.
That's right.
The family's still intact. Don't you worry about it, Mendy. And right now, things are intact. You guys are playing good ball. 2 games through this Rockies series. And one thing that a lot of Mets fans talked about recently was a tweak you made to the batting lineup back when the team was in Boston. And about a year ago, you made a change to the lineup that paid big dividends. And you do it again here. What was the impetus behind the tweak that you made?
Yeah, look, I'm always looking for ways to, shuffle things around. I don't like to overreact, obviously. But, this came up probably 2 weeks prior to the change where I was, going through it, certain scenarios. And the first thing, just talking to the players, talking to Juan, talking to P, talking to Brandon, Francisco, because there's a lot of moving pieces there. And it makes my job a lot easier when you get the buy-in from the players right away. Like whatever it takes, whatever you feel like is best for the team, we're willing to do it. And then it took me probably 2 weeks until I finally, went up to them and said, hey, it's time to do it, and they were like, we're ready to go. So it was just more like giving a different look to our lineup, that always, might create, a spark, or something like that, whatever we want to call it. But I just felt like at the time it was something that I wanted to do, and we will continue to do it. You seem, we're keeping Francisco in the leadoff spot, and then Soto, Pete, and then whether it's Name, Marte, Vientos on that 2-hole, depending on who we're facing, whether it's a righty, lefty, the bullpen from the other team. There's a lot that goes into it, but I like how it's moving now. I feel like those guys in the middle of our lineup continue to come up with traffic, and that's what we want.
On Saturday, Brandon Nimmo had a big day in the 2-hole, a base hit, 2-run homers. So the change paying dividends thus far. Now let's talk about everyone's 4 favorite letters, RISP. A hot button topic here in New York City recently. You're a baseball lifer, so I want to get your perspective on this. I'll give you my opinion after, but I want to hear from you.
Go ahead.
All right. The art of hitting with runners in scoring position. Is there a skill to it, or is it you can hit the fastball or you can't hit the fastball? You can hit the curveball or you can't hit the curveball. You're just going up there to hit the ball, whether there's runners on base or not.
Yeah, look, I think there's definitely skill.
Okay.
We all, for me, guys that are able to drive in 90, 100 is there's a skill to it. I think it's just having the awareness of the situation, what the pitcher's trying to do to you. It's not just going out there and hacking every pitch and trying to hit as hard as you can. These are some of the things that we're talking to our players, especially our younger players, and that's part of the adjustment, the development at the big league level, And yeah, you got some of the established players and, that they have a pretty good idea. You look at a guy like Pete Alonso, like Juan Soto, guys that, these 90 RBIs, 100 plus. But I feel like a little bit unlucky at times too, But like I said, the awareness, and this is something that at the end of the year, we got way too many good hitters. I know it's noisy right now, but at the end of the year, the numbers are going to be where we need to be.
So over time, basically, good players, in your opinion, will put up good stats, whether it's going right for them right now or not. Over the course 100%. Of 162, water finds its level.
100%. Like I said, there's a lot of noise now. Mm-hmm. The good thing that I like is we continue to create traffic. As long
always
as
guys on base.
As long as we continue to get on base, and we're not gonna be perfect all the time, and sometimes 1 for 11. Let me tell you something. Let's keep getting guys on base. More time than not, we will come through.
And of course, the more you put runners on, opposing pitchers have to throw high stress pitches. put pressure on the defense, good things will happen. I agree with you there. That was my opinion, so I'm glad that we share opinions there. Now let's talk about Brett Baty. Had a big bases clearing triple yesterday. How cool has it been from the manager's seat to see Brett Baty's breakout here after all the young man has endured?
It's pretty cool, proud of him. Hasn't been easy for him, the prospect coming up and then, going through some of the struggles at the big league level. And not only at the big league level, but in this city, in a big market where, you got to produce right away. And he hasn't been easy for him. He's been punched in the mouth. Got to go back to AAA, continue to fight. Didn't get the call back up last year. This year happens again. He's got to go back down. And now here he is getting an opportunity. And it's good to see him performing, playing with a lot of confidence on both sides of the ball. Defensively, he's been unbelievable at third base, at second base when we needed to. And then the at-bats, it's to a point now where he's hitting in the middle of our lineup. Early on, I was kind of like trying to protect him a little bit and kind of leave him alone in the ninth hole, but he continues to put it very hard on me. And, we saw it yesterday with a base clearing triple. Really good at-bats, aggressive, conviction, so there's a lot to like there.
Another guy who's had a nice series against Colorado, Starling Marte, hit the home run on Friday night. But Starling is so important for reasons beyond the diamond. He's important on the diamond as well. But what is the impact that Starling Marte has in the dugout and in the clubhouse that fans might not be seeing and are things that might not be showing up in the box score necessarily?
Total pro. This guy is a professional. Not an easy situation after being an everyday player in this league for a long time and just having to make that transition now to be pretty much a part-time player where you're facing just lefties, you're DH and you're coming off the bench. Not an easy role. Especially for a guy that's never been used to, but I feel like he's in a really good place right now. He's got a really good routine, but the impact in that locker room, not only with our younger players, but some of our established players, and not only on the position player side of things, with the pitching staff. Like, I've seen this guy going out of his way and having conversations, and talk about the struggles and, how to stay positive, how to stay consistent, creating a routine, like very, very quiet, but sneaky good leader.
Jeff McNeil, another guy who's been here for a while, veteran player on the club. Since he's come back, he's quietly been one of the most impactful players on this ball club. You go back to the middle of May. On base percentage, over 400, 14 walks, just 4 strikeouts, rarely strikes out, and he plays all around the diamond. But you don't just stick him there. He does a really good job no matter what you ask him to play. You ask him to go in the outfield, he could do it well. You ask him to play in the infield, he could do it well. How valuable is Jeff McNeil to your ball club?
Yeah, super valuable, and it makes my job a lot easier when you have a guy like that that can play second, that can play anywhere in the outfield, can start. You can move him in the middle of a game and allows you to make some move in games, obviously. But, his bat-to-ball skills, driving the ball with authority. I feel like left on left, especially against some of the relievers. He continues to give us really good at-bats. You got to give him credit, man. He's working really hard, and he's a big part of this team.
Yeah, go back to that. I think it was a 10-pitch plate appearance against the Cubs back on May 10th. You sent him up to pinch hit. You led off the inning with a 10-pitch walk. He's been fantastic. I want to talk about another guy who's been fantastic. You tell me, do you think this guy gets enough credit? I don't think he does. It's Reed Garrett, who has been an absolute bullpen ace for you. First of all, you think that we're talking enough about Reed Garrett in the media here?
No.
This isn't the media, by the way, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't pay too much attention there, I know we know how valuable he is for us. This is a guy that can give you multiple innings. He can come in, clean out a mess. He's also a guy that can get the last 3 hours of a game. His confidence is through the roof right now. And I think he just, the stuff that, I was watching him pitch the other day, and he's throwing 97 sinkers. He's throwing cutters. He's throwing splits. Sweeper, like, that's not an easy at bat as a hitter. Like, okay, what am I going to be looking at? Everything move here, right, left, up, down. So that's what makes him very, very tough. His ability to get lefties, righties. And like I said, I think he continues to get better mentally, physically, understanding, that he's got to get 3 outs, whether it's the last 3 out of the game, whether it's in the 6th inning, bases loaded, 2 out. So I'm very proud of him.
And how important is it for you, knowing you have a guy like Reed? You said yourself he could close if you need him to. where let's say, you have the 8th inning and the top of a team's lineup is coming up and you want to use Edwin in that situation. You did it in LA last year. I don't think you've done it yet this year, but those high leverage at bats, you're going to use Edwin in the 8th instead of the 9th. How important is it to have a guy like Reed where you can easily make that decision knowing that I've still got that great option to get the last 3 outs of this ball game for me?
Yeah, it definitely helps, when you're game planning. And there's been few situations this year where I gave Edwin a heads up, and if this situation comes up, be ready for the 8th. It hasn't happened yet. But, not only for Rick Garrett, but Edwin's ability to just, hey, man, whatever you need. Kind of like, I'm going to go back to when we're talking about lineup construction and the position player side. When you got you closer that is willing to pitch anytime, that goes to show you what kind of locker room we got. And, these guys are all for whatever the team needs, right? And then Rick Garrett, like I said, it's easier for me to make that decision. But not only with Rick Garrett, I know we're talking about Reader, but whether it's a Brasoban, whether it's a Stanek, So if the situation presents where I feel like Edwin is the best matchup in the 8th, I feel good with Reader. I feel good with Stanek. I feel good with Brasoban. I feel good with Randy. With a lot of those guys there that, is really good feeling to have.
Yeah, Brasoban's been great. You go back to the 7th inning at Yankee Stadium the Sunday night when he got Volpe. He's been fantastic as well. But let's talk about Edwin, who, after obviously an injury-plagued 2023 season, came back last year, was kind of refining his sea legs. He was the best pitcher, especially relief pitcher in baseball in 2022. Is this the best version of Edwin Diaz you've seen since you've taken over as Mets manager?
100%. We saw it in a good place towards the end of last year, and definitely in the playoff when we were deploying him multiple innings, 35 pitches. Not a comfortable situation, but we needed to do it, right? But yeah, people have to understand that he came from a pretty big injury, and it took him a while to get going, and then finally going through an off season where he was healthy. He didn't have to worry about rehabbing and just basically keep your arm in shape, work on mechanics. And that's what we're seeing. We've seen a guy that comes in, he's aggressive, using both of his pitches, the fastball, the slider, with conviction, attacking, and he makes him elite.
There was an article recently in The Athletic about Francisco Lindor. And in that article, it mentioned that at the end of each series, Francisco goes to every single locker stall in the clubhouse and checks in on all of his teammates. Now, obviously, communication over a long season, the mentals are so important, especially when you go out there every day, and it's a tough game, right? You succeed 3 out of 10 times, you're on your way to the Hall of Fame. How important is it to have a guy like Francisco who can self-police that clubhouse? You don't have to be the one to do it. One of the peers, one of the guys is making sure everyone's feeling right before game time.
Yeah, it makes my job a lot easier, when you have a guy like that goes out, out of his way to make sure he's checking on his teammates, whether they're doing good or bad, or whether the team is going through a tough stretch or where we're playing well. He's consistent, and that's what makes him who he is. I've been saying it. Like, I feel like I talk about Francisco Lindor every day. This is a special human. This is a special guy, special player. This is something that people shouldn't be taking for granted. We're watching greatness. We're witnessing greatness here. And what we see on the field, we see it behind closed doors, like how much he cares about his teammates, how much he wants to win, how much he cares about the organization, the fan base, and, he's a special guy.
Mendy, we got to get you out of here. You guys getting on a plane, going to LA, going to Colorado. Best of luck on the road trip. Thanks for a couple minutes, and we'll see you back here at the Apple pretty soon. Hey there. A happy June. Welcome to the podcast room. Jonathan Barron here with Hunter Taubes once again, and for Vito Calisi. Vito will be back, everybody. Don't fret.
I don't think they like me on YouTube. They're all
One
asking for
person.
Vito.
I think those are Vito's Bennington guys.
Could be.
I think Vito's got I didn't realize when I met Vito, he has a straight up cult following.
He's got a lot of people
that no one prepared me for. Dude, I took him to a Ranger game on January 26th. Heartbreaker of a loss for the Rangers. Gave up a goal in the waning moments of regulation. Ty's rolling his eyes. Doesn't want to hear about it. By the way.
I want to talk Mets baseball.
Okay. And we're walking up the street, and someone screams Vito, and it was a Bennington fan. And I was like, what the heck's going on here? But anyway, we're here to briefly recap the Mets taking care of business, as the victory song used to play around these parts. Sweeping the Colorado Rockies, going 5-1 against the White Sox, going 7-2 on the longest homestand of the season, a 9-game homestand. I think before we entered, Hunter, if people said to you, hey, 7-2, you signing up for that? I think the answer is yes. You'd agree, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially with the Dodgers at the front end, you take 7 out of 2 every time.
Right. And, I mean, Hunter's got his Rockies purple on this for
City
this
Connect purple.
episode.
City Connect.
City
purple.
Connect. Yeah, they wore that on Sunday. But a couple things happened in this series, high-arching things that we'll talk about. Number one is the long ball. People were kind of panicking there a little bit. At Yankee Stadium, the Mets did not homer one time. In Fenway, the Mets didn't homer until Lindor hit one late in the third game. But the Mets hit 3 home runs in each game in this series. On Friday night, all 4 of their runs came courtesy of the long ball. On Saturday, not the case. Brett Baty had a bases-clearing triple, but the Mets had a bunch of home runs outside of that. And on Sunday, Pete Alonso hits a huge 3-run home run. Francisco Lindor puts the Mets ahead with a solo shot, and then Juan Soto gives the Mets some insurance on Sunday. So all 5 of the Mets runs on Sunday coming by the long ball. So the bats were swinging, and it all started. This series began on that very note. Francisco Lindor hitting a leadoff home run against Kyle Freeland on Friday night, his first of 2 homers from the right side of the dish. And for Lindor at the time, his 5th leadoff homer of the season, it was tied with Shohei Ohtani for the most in Major League Baseball. Of course, Shohei Ohtani later that night, West Coast Apple game against the Yankees, hit a leadoff home run, so Lindor sits in second. But still, Francisco Lindor he's been the magic recipe, Hunter, when it comes to starting games with 5 leadoff home runs already this season.
Yeah, and not even his homers, his stats leading off the games are through the roof. His first inning, I know at one point this season, he was hitting 450 leading off games. So the fact that he's that confident and strong as a table setter, it's super important for this Mets team, especially if you see your other guys starting to click. If he's on base 2-3 times a night, getting hits, drawing walks, even hitting homers, this Mets lineup is just going to put up runs and runs and runs every single game.
And I was having a conversation with somebody on Saturday about teams and the psyche of a team when it's a good team and everyone knows it's a good team, but it hits a skid, it hits a slump, and every team in baseball does. Every elite player that's ever played this game goes through it. I mean, you look at April of 2024 for Aaron Judge, who could not get out of his own way, and then he wins the American League MVP award in 2024. You look at tons of guys throughout the course of history, like I said. With Francisco Lindor, he is the kind of guy where when he is slumping, first of all, he's not taking it out to his defensive position. He is still making an impact on the baseball game. Number 2, he does not take it to the next day with him. And I know it sounds cliche, but there are some guys that do. And naturally, that's just human nature, right? If you mess up at your job, which you don't, but if you were to.
Some people did, I think.
No, you don't. Trisha, he does not. He's the best. You know that. I know that. We all know that. It's a human thing to show up the next day thinking about whatever misstep you may or may not have had. And then you've got to really flush it. You've got to be able to have that goldfish mentality. And for baseball players, no one is booing you when you're at your place of work. No one is talking about you on the radio or writing about you in the newspapers or, talking about you on social media. Well, maybe you, but
that's true.
It's a tough thing to overcome struggles. And with Francisco Lindor, Mets fans can rest assured that every day he shows up at the park, he's got a fresh perspective. He's locked in. He's ready to go. And yesterday is in the past, and we're only focusing on today. And that, in a way, makes him slump-proof. And you look at last year, what happened with Francisco. I think what I'm saying right now really checks out, right? He really went through it for the first 6-7 weeks of the season. And then Mendy makes the move. And we talked to Mendy earlier today about lineup changes and what's the philosophy and how that all comes to be. He makes the move. And Francisco Lindor, ever since he moved to the leadoff spot in the Mets lineup, has been one of the most valuable players in Major League Baseball. So Lindor gets the party started on Friday night with the leadoff home run. And then you got Starling Marte hitting a home run. And we talked with Mendy also. Crushed it over the Great Wall of Flushing. We talked with Mendy as well earlier on Sunday about the impact that Starling Marte makes on the diamond, but also off the diamond, the professionalism, setting the example, working with young players, posting, showing up. And guys, I know some of you out there, I made a comment after the Red Sox series. I said, Starling Marte has been doing a good job. Someone said, oh, how could you say that? Because there's so much more, number one, to helping a ball club win than what you're seeing in the box score each and every day. But also, Starling Marte is feeling good, and he is going to be a big contributor to this Mets team moving forward. I know I've had some takes here, some bold takes on the show since we started the podcast last year. I mean, look, last year, late in the season, Pete Alonso was going through it. Talk about a guy going through it. And what did I kept saying, Hunter? It's coming. It takes one swing. And many people were ready to just flick it all away after the 7th inning of Game 3 in Milwaukee. And then what happened?
One swing.
And then one of the most majestic home runs in Mets history was hit. And I think that there's a lot of good baseball left in Starling Marte here. And I think that a lot of people are going to be eating some words that they've said about Starling Marte as a ball player because he's still got the raw tools, and you saw it with that absolute bomb against Kyle Freeland on Friday night.
Yeah. Obviously, he's up there in age, but he's still athletic enough and in good shape where, I mean, he stole a base today. He stole a base, and it was pretty uncontested. You know, he still moves very well. He's still very athletic. Obviously, the last couple of years, he had some injury issues, but if he stays healthy, he's going to be a contributor for this team, whether it's DHing against lefties, whether it's pinch running late in games, whether if he's in left field or if he's in right field giving Soto a day to DH. He's a versatile player. He can come in and do a really good job, especially against lefties. And every once in a while, he'll hit one 432 feet to dead center field. There's still a lot of good baseball left in Starling Marte. And as Mendy said before, he's a true professional that knows his role on this team. And I think that just shows you another part of this team that's so valuable is that every single guy knows their role. And if Starling Marte, who's getting a lot of at-bats in a platoon role, he knows his role, then everyone else on the team does as well. And I just think it's such a good team environment to have where everyone knows your role. You know, Bill Belichick always saying, do your job. If everyone's just doing their job, the Mets are going to win a lot of games. The Mets are going to win a lot of games in convincing fashion as they did this past weekend.
Right. Mets now season best 15 games over 500. Also on Friday night, I want to talk about David Peterson, who once again has a great outing, continues to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. We talked about it a couple episodes ago. And I've noticed some people picking up on that top 10 ERA over the last 2 years thing. So great job by David Peterson. And then it was Edwin Diaz coming in to lock it down. Oh, actually, I got to backtrack real quick.
Please.
Lindor hit a second home run in that game. Great stat.
From
it was the
side.
fifth time, one from the left, one from the right. The fifth time Francisco Lindor has homered from both sides of the plate as a member of the New York Mets, ties Todd Hundley, one of the most prolific home run hitters in Met history, and Carlos Beltran, two guys with 40 homer seasons for the Mets, for the most games with homers from both sides of the dish in Mets history. So a nice note there. Francisco just continues to knock down records. I got another one to share in a little bit.
Please.
But then Edwin Diaz comes in and he shuts the door. And at that point, he ran his streak of consecutive batters faced without allowing a hit to 30, which joined very elite company. Edwin Diaz, as you guys heard Mendy say, is in as good a form as we have seen in quite some time. You really have to go back to his 2022 season when Edwin Diaz was a record setter at the back end of the bullpen for the Mets. So that was Friday night. And then Saturday, we play a 4 o'clock game here at Citi Field. It's a Kodai Senga game. And the Mets get it going early. Senga allows a home run early in the game. 6 of the 11 runs he's allowed this season have come in the first inning. I said this a couple episodes ago. I said it after the Dodger series that Kodai is one of those guys, if you don't get him early, you're not going to get him. So you better get him early. He gives up the home run. But the Mets answer right back, courtesy of Brett Baty Hunter, who continues to be just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and what I love most about Brett's at-bat there is he took the pitch to left center, right? We know he's always been regarded as a lot of opposite field power, but to see him drive a ball off the wall with the bases loaded, just really encouraging to see that, we talked about it last episode, the sustained major league success that Brett Baty has had now for since he's been recalled on May 7th, I believe. It's really impressive. It's really encouraging. It's just a lot of fun to watch. And I also have a take, John.
Oh, first take by Hunter.
The bases clearing triple
Most exciting play in baseball.
Is the most electric play in baseball.
Okay, so
I'll hear an argument, but that's my opinion.
It depends where the triples hit. If it's pulled down the line and we're watching the merry-go-round in full effect, this was off the wall.
Okay, was it not awesome also?
When it's off the wall, the place gets a little bit of the life sucked out of it because people are thinking for a second it might be a grand slam. And so there's that bit of, I thought it was gone. And it's almost like a consolation. When Jose Reyes would put one up the gap or down the line,
and
you're just watching, he's off to the races.
That's fair.
And you know it's not gone. And now it's like, if he gets the third, it's a victory. It's awesome. That's incredible. So I disagree a bit with your take, Hunter. Sorry. But I agree with everything you say, it's not good podcasting.
No, it's fine. But Jose Reyes pulling it down the line, right field line, and running to third base.
That was the most electric
in
thing.
9 seconds or whatever it is. That I'll give you is more electric than. But back to Brett Baty, number 7 also is
number
Jose
7.
Reyes.
Yes,
so
that's correct.
Good little tie-in.
That's correct.
Again, just really nice to see him drive the ball with authority and conviction, as Mendy said before, to left field, to left center field, where we know he's got so much power.
And I've got a stat to match your take.
Please.
Brett Baty this year on balls hit to left field and left center field is slugging .852, which is the 6th highest by any player, lefty or righty. Actually, no, it's not. It's a lefty hitter going the opposite way by any player in baseball. So you talk about Brett Baty and his power the other way. I think that's his natural power stroke. I think as long as Brett Baty continues to shoot the ball up the middle and hit balls and spray balls all over the place. We saw the homer he hit against Zach Wheeler. I mean, that was just power on power.
Yeah.
We've talked about the bat speed, and that was 97 mile an hour fastball up in the zone. But as long as Brett Baty stays true to who he is, Brett Baty is going to continue to have success. And for him to put that ball off the wall in left center field against Antonio Senzatella on Saturday was a great sign, because we had watched Pete Alonso get blown away by Senzatella in the plate appearance right before Baty came up and cleared the bases. Senzatella was playing country hardball. And we saw this against Bobby Miller last Saturday. Ched on Ched. That's what I said. Country hardball.
You did say that.
I did say that. I'm not sure if I'm happy I said that, but I said that. And we see Brett Baty do it once again. So Brett Baty continues to excel, and boy, oh boy, is it fun to watch.
Yeah. It's just the passion that he plays with, again, driving the ball all over the field. It's really exciting. It's been great to watch since his recall. And he's also just elevated his game at third base, which is, he's awesome over there. He makes all the plays. He comes in on the ball really well. He goes to his left really well, goes to his right really well. He's got that really strong arm. It's just, he's becoming a really complete player. And it's just, again, really fun to watch, really awesome to watch.
And you heard Mendy talk about him playing at second base, where the Mets really believe in Brett Baty at second base. Otherwise, I don't think you hear Mendy bring that up in that conversation when I asked him about Brett Baty and the maturation and all we're seeing from him. But he was tested quite often on Sunday afternoon with Clay Holmes on the mound, big sinker ball pitcher. 10 of the 20 batted balls against Clay Holmes on Sunday were on the ground, and a lot of those were to third base, and Brett Baty did not skip a beat at all. So Brett Baty continues to do it on both sides of the ball. Now, Hunter, you said the bases clearing triple was the most electric play in baseball, but now it is time for the electric play of the series presented by PC Richard & Son. And it's not just one play. We got 2 plays, back-to-back pitches. Brandon Nimmo first, hitting a 2-run home run. That gives him 400 career RBI. And as Nimmo is going down the runway in the dugout, getting ready for his picture, Juan Soto unloads on a solo shot the other way. Talk about a guy in his natural power stroke. When Juan puts one to left center field, there's nothing sweeter visually in the game than Juan Soto hitting a home run like that. Nimmo and Soto, Nimmo in the 2-hole, Mendy moving him to that spot, paying off, and Soto on back-to-back pitches. Citi Field erupting. The PC Richard electric play of the series. Hunter, what a moment that was.
Yeah. Nimmo crushing the ball out to right center. Soto going the other way. Both really impressive swings. I believe all with 2 outs, correct? Lindor got on in front of Nimmo with 2 outs. And I think Nimmo was with 2 strikes.
Yep.
I think both homers, no, obviously not Soto's, but Nimmo's homer with 2 strikes. And personally, my favorite little moment of the season, if you will, is the cameras cutting to Nimmo, Lindor, and Winker in the dugout getting ready for their picture, looking up to see the ball go over the fence, looking back for their picture all hyped up and freaking out. But yeah, the ballpark was obviously on fire with the 2 of them. And, when Nimmo starts that power stroke and Soto starts that power stroke, and the 2 of them in the middle of, so if Nimmo's going to continue to hit second, which is a position where I think he might be at his best, just lengthens the lineup. When we talk about lengthening lineups, 6, 7, 8 threats deep, it's just, Citi Field was electric yesterday with those 2 moments, with that moment per se.
Yep. It was the big guys carrying the Mets all weekend long. Real quick, want to talk about Kodai Senga. I know we mentioned the first inning struggles versus the rest of the game just being absolutely dominant. 1.60 ERA now on the season, the lowest by any National League qualifier. So Kodai continues to really anchor the Mets rotation. But as I've said many times here on this podcast, this Mets team, this Mets rotation has multiple good options. They will get another option on Monday when Paul Blackburn is inserted into the rotation. So the Mets will go 6-man, and then you still have Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas on the comeback trail. And then perhaps, who knows what the Mets' plans are with some talent in AAA, talking about Nolan McLean, who has a sub-3 ERA. through his first handful of starts for AAA. Syracuse and Blade Tidwell, who we've seen, who an outing or two ago was dominant. I think he had,
Last outing,
yeah, it was perfect,
struck
right?
out 11.
Yeah,
I
was
believe, and-
perfect through 5 or 6 innings.
Yep.
So the Mets have a lot of good options when it comes to the arms. But let's now fast forward to Sunday, and let's talk, I guess, continue the theme of the arms, because Clay Holmes had the longest start of his big league career. Obviously, he hasn't made that many starts, but complete 7 innings for the first time. Needs just 85 pitches to do it, by the way. So Mendy's still being, I don't want to say cautious, but not pushing it with Clay Holmes. But how effective and efficient Clay Holmes was. Didn't walk really, I don't think he walked anybody. Mets pitchers, in fact, in this 3-game series, issue just 5 bases on balls. So, that was an area the Mets did need to clean up. We talked about some defensive woes that needed to improve, especially on the infield, and free passes being issued. 2 things that the Mets really, really did a nice job with in this 3-game series. Of course, when you hit 3 home runs a game, you're putting yourself in a good position to win. And speaking of those 3 home runs, the big trio of Lindor, Alonso, and Soto, they all go yard on Sunday for the Mets. Alonso, it's a big 3-run home run to give the Mets a lead against Carson Palmquist, who was kind of cruising first time through. He was looking like Chris Sale for a second there.
I would say he looked really sharp. He's got that funky arm angle from the left
Just
side.
slinging it.
Yeah. But yeah, Pete to sort of shift the momentum in favor of the Mets, hitting the ball out to right field, which
Love to see it.
I know you are a huge fan of Pete Alonso hitting home runs to the opposite field.
When he's right.
But yeah, just for Alonso, Lindor, and Soto to homer in the same game. I don't think that's happened this year.
I don't think so.
Right?
I don't think so, no.
So for the first time, the 3 of them homer all together, which is obviously very encouraging. But we keep talking about 1 or 2 guys have clicked at the same time. 1 guy's been clicking. The 3 of them haven't clicked all together yet. It would be a good time if the 3 of them are all clicking for 4 games out in LA. I think that's probably a really good time to, be all on the same page. But all just really impressive shots. Pete Alonso going to right field, Lindor with the screamer out to left field from the right side of the plate, and then Soto's was 110 miles an hour.
Yes, it was.
All down on the knee, I think on a 3-2 count. So
Yep.
it's just like 3 really impressive homers, 3 at-bats that show you that these guys are right on it, and just very encouraging going out into this important series in LA.
Yeah, you said it yourself. I mean, Lindor had a huge series, 6 hits, 3 homers, 2 walks. Soto, 2 hits on Friday, including a double, and then a homer in back-to-back games, Saturday, Sunday, their second time, he's homered in back-to-back games this season. He looks pretty locked in to me. It looks like he's not finally, but looks like he's taking off and really getting ready to inflict some damage. Great time, like you mentioned, with the 4-game road trip against the Dodgers. Last time Juan Soto played at Dodger Stadium was Game 2 of the World Series, in which he homered as a member of the New York Yankees against Yoshinobu Yamamoto in that game, too.
He should homer tomorrow. That would be cool.
That would be very cool.
So,
speaking of cool,
yeah,
how about this for a really cool nugget?
please.
Francisco Lindor, we mentioned, and Pete Alonso homering in the same game. This isn't going to include Soto, but Sunday was the 28th time that Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso have homered in the same game. And that's significant because that is now the most such games by any duo in the history of the New York Mets. It surpasses Darryl Strawberry and Howard Johnson, 2 1986 World Series champions, 2 top 5 guys of the Mets all time. Home runs list, of course, Hojo, a Mets Hall of Famer, and Darryl Strawberry had his number retired actually 1 year ago Sunday. It was June 1st, 2024.
It was.
And Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso moved past that duo. They now have the most games in Mets history that they've both homered in. When I saw that, I was blown away because, people always like to think about the good old days, reminisce in the good old days. And obviously, you talk about Hojo and Darryl Strawberry, a couple of guys that we didn't see play, not as Mets at least. But when you talk about the good old days, we are in the good old days right now with this duo, with this trio, with this quado, whatever it is. You want to throw Brandon Nimmo in there. You want to throw Mark Vientos in there. You want to throw so many of the really, really great players in this Mets lineup we get to watch each and every day. But we've seen Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso in the same lineup now since 2021. This is year 5. And it took only 5 years for these two to set this Mets record. And for me, it's such a cool and impressive record that this very well might be the best duo that we will ever see in New York Mets history as far as teammates offensively go. And this statistic is one way of quantifying that. This very well might be it. Now, who knows what the future has in store? We know Francisco signed for a while. We know Juan Soto is going to be here for a long time, so perhaps Francisco and Juan Soto can possibly homer in the same game 30 times. Obviously, Pete and Francisco have many more games this season to do so in. But what a special record for those two. I hope someone brings it up to their attention. It's such a neat statistic and so meaningful. I don't know why, but it just like it hit me in the feels.
Yeah,
the Mets feels.
No, totally. I mean, it's just very to see these guys be the two, quote unquote leaders. If obviously there's plenty of leaders, but Pete's been sort of the guy since 2019, and Lindor has been the guy for the last couple of years. And to have the two of them share that record, that sort of piece of Mets history together, I think it's really special. The two of them, it seems like they have a great relationship. Obviously, it seems like they all have a great relationship, this team. But, you mentioned it. We never got to see Hojo and Straw together hitting in the same lineup. Where I'm sure the two of them are just hitting monster shots all the time.
Yep.
It really is, in my opinion, probably the best offensive duo in Mets history to this point. I mean, Piazza and Olerud, or Piazza and Fonzie, didn't really have too many years together.
Yeah, the
right?
longevity.
4 or 5?
Yeah. Ventura also, but
Right.
it wasn't as many core prime years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That was my point. So the fact that these guys together for 5 years now, Hojo and Straw played together for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
So the fact that these two guys did it so quickly, did it as, we know this where this team has the potential to go. I just think it's a really cool stat for these two guys to share. I think it's a really nice piece of Mets history. And, they are arguably the two fan favorites too. Every time Pete steps up to the plate,
Yep.
So it's hitting you in the Mets feels. I agree. It's a really nice stat for them to share.
Yeah, you look around at the jerseys being worn by the little kids on a Sunday afternoon at the ballpark, or any day of the week, really. I mean, I remember coming as a kid, and when you're there for the starting lineups, and like there's the one or two guys that always get the biggest round of applause. It was Piazza, it was David Wright. For this Mets team, it's crazy that you've got so many options. Like Brandon Nimmo was also a beloved member of the New York Mets.
Absolutely.
I think only 14 guys in Mets history have had at least 400 RBI in the Mets jersey. Brandon joins that pretty exclusive club on Saturday. Juan Soto, I mean, he is an absolute superstar, a dynamic talent, one of the best baseball players we've seen in generations, a member of the New York Mets. Pete Alonso, our guy, the guy that fans clamored for in the offseason, who has just been incredible so far, and he's getting hot once again. He continues to push. He's right on David Wright's tails for second on the Mets all-time home runs list, and pretty soon we're going to be talking about that all-time home runs record because
Totally.
Pete is really, really starting to creep up on Darryl Strawberry in that regard. And of course, Francisco Lindor with all the huge moments he's had just in the last couple years alone. And I think fans also love him because he is a guy who has gone through it and has bounced back and come out of it in such a better way. And we're all better off because we get to watch this guy play baseball each and every day. And I think that, when he first got here, the struggles he had and the fans' expectations to what they got weren't necessarily, linear.
Mm-hmm.
But he has been such an incredible New York Met, and him and Pete Alonso together as teammates setting this record, a really, really cool piece of Mets history. So congrats to those guys. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Also want to mention Edwin Diaz, who continues to be lights out. We talked about it, of course, with Mendy before the game on Sunday. Edwin Diaz goes out there and gets the job done once again, strikes out the side on Sunday. He's now struck out 20 of 49 guys going back to his last 13 outings. Hasn't allowed a single run in those 13 outings. Did allow a hit, which is like, breaking news with Edwin Diaz because he doesn't allow hits anymore.
So do you consider, even though he struck out 3 batters, he gave up a hit, is that still striking out the side to you?
Yes, it's not striking out the side in order. It's striking out the side. Yeah,
all right.
That's what that is.
I'll disagree with you on that, but
No. Like, there's no disagreement.
okay.
This is an opinion.
Okay. You just struck out 3 batters in the inning.
Yeah, that's striking out the side.
Okay.
Retired the side. You can allow 4 hits in an inning.
Okay.
You can allow 5 runs in an inning.
Okay. All right.
Once the third's out.
My bad. I didn't mean to bring it up. I didn't mean to get you all heated. It's on me.
Darn, dude.
Let's keep talking Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, let's keep talking. I mean, what more can you say about Edwin Diaz? He is just, like Mendy said it. Excuse me. I think that pretty much, fully encapsulates it. He is the best version of Edwin Diaz we have seen in quite some time. And it's just a pleasure to watch him pitch.
Yeah, I mean, ever since he said his legs were different sizes or different heights or whatever it is.
That is the day it all started.
He has been lights out. He's throwing everything in the zone. He's throwing pitches, getting swings and misses out of the zone, down and away with the slider, up with the fastball, under the hands with the fastball. He's doing everything that we saw him do in 2022. It's
free and easy.
Yeah.
It's free and easy.
It really is. It's just, and I think he was pitching well to begin the season. It's not like he was struggling.
No.
But
hasn't blown a save this season.
Right. But I really do think the save at Yankee Stadium and striking out Judge on that fastball really had him take off. You know, I know that was sort of in the middle of this streak that he's been on.
Yeah.
But I think that was when he went from being a really good closer to being 2022 Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, and I think with closers, part of it is the the mental edge you might have over the opponent,
Totally.
right? Like some guys come in and you're a little, is he gonna be able to nail this down? We got a 1-run lead here. I think right now on June 1st, 2025, when Edwin Diaz is coming into games, it's that what from the other dugout. Like, we have to face this guy, especially here at Citi Field.
Yep.
Trumpets at night, forget it. Absolute scenes here at Citi Field. Nothing beats an Edwin Diaz trumpet entrance during a night game, especially on a Friday, Saturday night. But he's just such a scary guy to have to go up and face because he's chucking 100, and that slider is just so lethal, and the way he tunnels those two pitches is absolutely incredible. So the Mets take care of business against the Colorado Rockies. Up next, the Los Angeles Dodgers, where it all ended in 2024 in the NLCS Game 6 at Dodger Stadium. Mets boarding a flight probably within the hour, and they will play a 4-game series against the Rockies. No days off. I kind of like it, honestly. Just keep playing ball, get out there. Like we mentioned, Paul Blackburn is going for the Mets. He'll make his season debut on Monday after dealing with some injury issues, so great to see Paul back in the mix. And, the Mets, Clay Holmes throwing 7 innings outside of Reed Garrett, who continues to be an absolute stud. Talked about that with Mendy as well. And Edwin Diaz, the Mets bullpen is pretty fresh. So Huáscar Brazaban, Max Kranick, Jose Castillo, who has been great for this Mets team so far since he's come over. They've got a lot of options. And Diaz didn't pitch on Saturday, so he could go back-to-back if Edwin wants him, if Mendy wants to use him on Monday. So the Mets heading west, they'll do 4 in LA and then 3 with the Rockies. So seeing a couple teams that they just faced. For the Dodgers, if all things go as I think that they are, because Yamamoto's pitching Sunday night against the Yankees.
I believe so.
So the Mets are going to miss Yamamoto.
That's good.
Which is kind of nice because the Mets didn't see him the first time around either.
Yep.
The Mets will see Dustin May, who is pretty nasty, back from injury.
I would say recovering from
a second elbow surgery. Clayton Kershaw, who the Mets saw back, we're supposed to kind of see on the 23rd, the Friday night game. The rain delay knocked Kershaw out. Tony Gonsolin, who the Mets beat on Saturday night, and Landon Knack, who the Mets beat on Sunday night. So they'll see 3 familiar guys they saw the first time these two teams met. After Blackburn, it'll be Tyler McGill, Griffin Canning, and then David Peterson, I believe, is the rotation through for the Mets when they go to LA. So, look, I don't want to hear about people talking about beating good teams, beating bad teams. There's one thing to take away from this weekend, this homestand that we just witnessed. The Mets are back in first place.
Mm-hmm.
The Phillies just got swept at home by the Brewers. A good team, not saying they're not. But these are the ups and downs of a major league season. This time last week, this time when the Mets were in Boston or leaving the Bronx, you look at the standings. The Phillies are 3 games up. The sky is falling. Now look where we are. Everyone's back level set. The Mets are a game up. They're hot. They've won. If you go back to the last game against the Red Sox, 8 of their last 11 after a 7-2 homestand, and they go to the West Coast feeling really good about themselves. Everything right now, as far as I'm concerned in Mets land, hunky-dory, baby.
Yeah, I'm with it. They're playing great ball. They're playing team baseball. Everyone's doing their job. Go out in LA, go try and win a series. Go try and win a series in Colorado. Come back here for Washington and Tampa.
Washington and by the way, the Nationals are really they're playing some good baseball.
Yeah. Just, keep doing your thing, Mets. Keep playing well. Keep doing your job, fielding the grounders, do the simple things, making the throws, getting guys over, getting guys on, over and in. Just keep playing really good baseball.
And to you guys, I mean, this was the longest homestand of the season, like I mentioned at the top of the episode. You guys came out. What a great job by the Mets fans all homestand, whether it was last weekend against the Dodgers, 3 packed houses. The White Sox series was a lot of fun. And this weekend against the Rockies was a lot of fun as well. Friday night, Saturday afternoon, those Saturday 4 o'clock games, they hit. You know, I'm kind of, as a person, someone with a life, yeah, it cuts in the middle of your day. But as far as it goes with the baseball and just the vibe out there, love it, love it, love it. The Mets City Connects look so crisp in the shadows. And obviously, we had a great time here on Saturday. And then Sunday, another family Sunday in the books. You guys came out. You guys were allowed all homestand. So we look forward to that continuing when the Nationals come to town. And then we got a huge weekend against Tampa Bay on Father's Day weekend. Pride Night on Friday.
Yep.
Saturday, we got a lot of, it's Flag Day here in America, the Army's birthday. And then, of course, Sunday, Father's Day. So if you guys don't have tickets already to bring dad out to the ballpark, make sure you visit Mets.com/tickets. You can check it out there. You can check this podcast out on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. Give it, what, no Google Play?
No, John.
Why not Google Play?
I don't think it's on Google Play.
Are you sure? We got to look into that.
Okay.
What about Amazon? Is there an Amazon sound delivery service?
I don't know.
Well, I know you can do it on Apple. I know you can do it on Spotify. You can do it right here if you're watching on the Mets YouTube account. Leave some comments, mix it up. I respond. Let's keep it civil, you know, like let's not get mean here in the comments, but I respond. Someone asked, "Is this the real Jonathan Barron?" I was like, I mean, dude, you know, no, I'm not. No one's impersonating me.
The Jonathan Barron.
Yeah, one person got a good kick out of that. What?
Before we get out of here,
Yeah.
just one quick minor league note.
Tell
from
me.
My friend Jacob Resnick over in Player Dev.
Tell me.
The Mets full season affiliates this week. So St. Lucie, Brooklyn, Binghamton, Syracuse, 21-2 record.
21-2
from Tuesday through Sunday. They
don't play on Monday.
They don't play on Monday. 21-2 record for the minor league affiliates. So everything's coming up Mets right now across the system.
Everything is coming up Mets.
So just wanted to throw that out there.
I love that. That's a great note from Hunter. Hunter does a great job running at Mets Player Dev. You guys got to check that out.
Thanks, John.
Obviously, all the socials, at Mets on Twitter, at Mets on Instagram. You can find me at JMB9191 if you want to throw me a little comment on the episode. Also, shout out Vito F. Khaleesi at Vito F. Khaleesi. Hope you're doing well, Vito. Can't wait to see you. This is at Hunter Taubes on social media. Like I said, guys, Apple, Spotify, right here. And also got to shout out our great friends at PC Richard & Son. Make sure you guys head out to your local PC Richard & Son, where you can find the absolute best sales staff and the lowest prices, no matter what you're in the market for, whether it's a TV, appliances, mattresses, home theater system, whatever you need, they've got it. They're going to take care of you. They're going to lead you to what you need. And they've been doing it for so long, since 1909. Check out your local PC Richard & Son. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. The first place New York Mets sweep the Colorado Rockies. On to LA. We're going to Hollywood. Mets at Dodgers for a 4-game set. We will be right here to break it all down for you at the conclusion of that 4-game series. Until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll meet you again soon at the Apple.